3.2, writing expressions. So we're going to start off with talking about keywords, and I'm just going to take a picture that's right from your book, but I want you to rewrite this in your notes. So some words imply math operations, and this box shows you, and I'm going to kind of go through them, but take a moment right now just to pause the video so that I can kind of review this with you after you have it in your notes. So pause it, go ahead and write that down, and then I will continue. Okay, so let's start with addition. So some of our keywords, and you can kind of see how the page works here. These are keywords and phrases, and then these will be the operations that will work with it. So let's look at addition. So if you are working on a problem and it's a word problem or even just something you're working on in class, an expression, if you see the word added to or plus or sum of or more than, increased by, total of, or the word and, that usually implies addition. Subtraction, we've got, let me get my pointer out, we've got subtracted from, minus, difference of, less than, decreased by, fewer than, and take away. So some of those you might be familiar with. With multiplication, there is multiplied by, times, product of, twice, and the word of. And we kind of talked about that in the last chapter, the word of. And then with division, you're looking at divided by or quotient of. There's not too many other ones that you will recognize with division. Example 1, writing numerical expressions. The directions are simple. It just says write the phrase as an expression, and then once you go from there, you're going to actually write the expression. The expression would consist of numbers and an operation. So using the table that you just drew out for me on the other page, what I want you to do is I want you to notice, let me see if I can get my color here, that we have a phrase in here that will help you with the expression. So we have the word fewer than, so 8 fewer than 21. What you need to look at is and realize is that the word fewer than is under subtraction. So we know that part of our expression is going to have a subtraction there. What we have to think about and pan out in our head is that what comes first, 21 or 8? Now, right now in 6th grade, we haven't worked with any negatives because if I did 8 minus 21, I would get a negative number. So that should be an indicator. However, you really need to think about it. If I have 8 fewer than 21, that means I'm taking 8 away from 21, and it would look like this. Now, it doesn't say to solve this. It just says to write it. So this is my answer to something like this. If I had the product of 30 and 9, I would have to try to figure out what are my key words or phrases that I'm seeing, and I would notice that the product of would mean multiplication. Now, if you look at addition, the word and is in there. Now, the word and is used all over the place. So just so you know, that is not part of the actual keyword or phrases. So the words that we're focusing on is product of. So then it would just be, because it's a product means multiplication. So we would just have 30 times 9. Okay, make my dot kind of filled in. Could you have 9 times 30? Sure. I mean, you're going to get the same exact outcome, but just remember, it's listed this way, so 30 and 9. So just do it this way, and this would be your completed answer. Example 2 is writing algebraic expressions. So the directions with this one would be write the phrase as an expression. So if I had 14 more than a number x, you need to go back to that chart and see where is the word or the phrase more than. So if I'm looking at my addition, I can see that a little ways down that table it says more than. So if I have 14 more than x, you would actually write it this way because it's going to be more than x. So I'm going to do x plus 14 because basically it's saying that I have 14 more than x. So my final answer in this for this expression is x plus 14. So let's take a look at this one. A number y minus 75. Again, we don't know what y is. That's our variable. So we have to look at what our keyword is here. And in this case, they make it a different color for you. But it's not always going to be like this. So you got to find out what your keyword or phrase is. In this one, it says minus. We should all know that what minus means. You just need to make sure you line it up correctly. So it says a number y, so that's what I'm going to put first, minus 75. And that's my answer. So this one just reads it like it is, but some of them you have to kind of figure out where do my numbers go, in what order. Part C says the quotient of 3 and a number z. So this one, the phrase quotient of means division. So it says the quotient of 3 and a number z. So we're going to put it in that order because of the way it's written. These can be very, very tricky. I'm going to talk about a common error here in just a second. This one could also look like this because we have talked about this with fractions. 3 over z, because it would technically be, as we say it, it would be 3 divided by z. Same thing, 3 divided by z. So this one I'm going to do a little differently because there's a lot of the typing in that. So this example 3, it says writing an algebraic expression. So I want you to follow along with me as I go through this. So it says the length of Interstate 90 from the west coast to the east coast is 153.5 miles more than 2 times the length of the Interstate 15 from southern California to northern Montana. So that's a pretty big sentence. That's something you're definitely going to have to read again. Let M be the length of Interstate 15. Which expression can you use to represent the length of Interstate 90? So I want you to know a couple things on here. First of all, they give us a couple extra numbers that we're not going to actually need in our equation. So you have to be careful and aware of that. The first one is the length of Interstate 90. 90 is not going to have anything because that's just the actual name of the interstate. And then if you go down a little bit more, it says Interstate 15. There's another number that they're kind of trying to fool us with. We don't have to use those numbers 90 and 15 in our equation at all. So what we have to say and we have to realize is that we've got 153.5 miles more than. So that happens to be where our key word comes in. So we have more than. And if you look back at before example 1 and you look at your table that you made, where is more than? Well, more than happens to fall into the addition part of the table. So right there, I can go down and look at what my answers are. And this is something you have to do when you take the M-STEP test and any other tests that you take in class that are multiple choice. Think about what can I get rid of first. So if I know more than is addition, I look down at my answers. I've got A has addition, B does not. C does not, it has subtraction. And then D also has addition. So I can right away get rid of the option of B and the option of C, all because I knew that it was more than. That is something really important to discover right away. So the next thing that we can look at, we've got the talk of Interstate 15 again. We have this talk of Interstate 90 again. Let's get rid of those numbers. M is important because that is our variable. That's the length of the interstate. We want to know about Interstate 15. What we do know already is that Interstate 15 is 2 times the length. We know that Interstate 90 is 2 times the length of Interstate 15. So because of that, we have to look for more keywords. The other keyword that I see in there is times. So we have 2 times the length. And if you look back at your table, you'll see that the word times shows up under multiplication. So let's look down at our possible answers here. I've got 2m and I've got 153.5 m. So those are both multiplication. So we don't have to worry about eliminating anything at this point. So now what I have to recognize here is that I've got multiplication and addition in my problem. Would it be best to say 2 times m, which is the length of Interstate 15, plus the 153.5 miles, which is the length of Interstate 90? So think about that for a second. If I multiply m, let me get my marker here. If I multiply 153 times m, which m ends up being the length of Interstate 15, would that make any sense to multiply 153.5, which happens to be Interstate 90's length, times the length of Interstate 15? No, not at all. It makes sense to say that because it's 2 times the length, we can say however long Interstate 15 is, that's what we multiply by. So, looking at that, the word times means multiplication, so multiply 2 and m. The phrase more than means addition, so add 2m in 153.5. So the correct answer is A in this case. And that concludes the video for today. We will do the real life application together.